show you, if you happen to be watching on the Blaze, I'll describe it if you're just listening to us, but play the video of the Minister of Health yesterday in Iran. He's just standing next to the guy. They're giving this press conference, and he is sweating profusely. He's wiping his face. He's wiping his nose. And they're saying, hey, there's a coronavirus thing going on. Well, he has it. He has it. So,
I mean, you have a scene from Chernobyl, the series on HBO, where like all the state representatives are up there.
Yeah. Hey, the roof is fine up here. Yeah. It's not. I mean, it's crazy what's going on. And the numbers in Iran don't make sense because they are worse than they are in China as far as the death rate. Tom Cotton has been trying to get to the bottom of this. He is the senator from Arkansas. Tom, welcome to the program. How are you, Senator?
Hey, Glenn, I'm good. Thanks for having me back on.
Good. Now, we found out, and I can't seem to figure this out, and I know you're the guy looking for answers, but the China State newspaper says that the coronavirus didn't come from bat soup in that market. They have not been able to find patient zero, and it didn't come from there. And this is really important that we find these things. You said about, 6 weeks ago that you were concerned that it might have been a weapon from that biolevel 4 plant, if you will, there in Wuhan. Have you found out any more? What are we thinking where this actually came from?
No, Glenn, we haven't found out anything more, in part because the Chinese Communist Party continues to restrict access to Wuhan in general and the laboratory in particular, and continue to be dishonest and deceitful about this virus. However, I would note that just over the weekend, the Global Times, which is the Chinese Communist Party's international propaganda rag, admitted that their first origin story, which you cited, Glenn, that it came from a food market in Wuhan, was false. That was conclusively established by Chinese researchers over a month ago. In the report that I was citing in mid-January, that virus went into the market before it came out of the market. At least 14 of the first 40 cases had no contact with the market. So it raises the question, where did it originate? And we don't know. Now, it could have been another food market. It could have been a farm. It could have been a food processing facility. But obviously, when you have China's only super laboratory that deals with human infectious diseases, including the coronaviruses, just a few miles away from the food market, it is only responsible and reasonable to ask the question. You don't even have to say that China was engaged in dark biological weapon research there.
Correct.
You simply say they had bad safety practices. Maybe they were researching vaccines or diagnostic tests or therapeutic drugs. But they simply won't provide us any answers. And until they provide us the answers, until we can get our hands around how this outbreak started, we need to ask the questions and demand answers from the Chinese Communist Party.
So is there anything, I thought of you immediately when I saw this come out of Iran, because they're immediately saying this is an American Zionist plot against China and against Iran. But the numbers are so skewed in Iran, and I trust them less than I do China. But their numbers are so skewed. Their numbers are saying that there is a 20% or a 19% death rate of those who are getting coronavirus in Iran. And I thought, well, geez, Iran, China, North Korea, they all kind of work together on, bad things. Are we looking into what's happening in Iran at all?
So you are correct, Glenn, not to trust the government of Iran on this matter or anything else. And I suspect that one reason those numbers are so skewed in Iran is that Iran is still lying about these cases. They got to the point where they can no longer conceal it from their own people credibly, but they are still managing the flow of information.
But they're saying now that there is, I guess our scientists, as much as we can, are saying there is no connection to China, that there's no patient zero there either.
I have not seen those reports, Glenn.
Okay.
Every case in the world of which I am aware has some kind of connection back to China. It may be 2 or 3 persons removed, has some kind of connection.
Okay.
You are correct that it's not just the governments of Iran and China that collaborate a lot. But there's obviously a lot of Chinese tourism that goes on in Iran. There is a lot of Chinese labor that is exported around the world to fund remittances back to China.
Correct.
So that's a second possibility for the outbreaks that you see in Iran and throughout East and South Asia and the Middle East is Chinese migrant labor going to these countries. But the reason I suspect that you see such high rates of mortality in Iran is that they are underreporting the cases they have. Unfortunately, they were probably lying all along, hoping that they can conceal the cases that are present in their borders, and they got to a point where they just decided they couldn't do so anymore.
I mean, I don't know if you saw, Senator, the video that we just played that I was just describing on air. The health minister, the head of the health ministry in Iran, standing next to another guy from the health ministry. And the main minister is already feverish. He's breaking out in a sweat. They now admit that he does have coronavirus. But here's this guy telling everybody what's going on, and he's sick and spreading it to everybody else who's in the room.
Yeah. I have seen that video, Glenn,
crazy,
and it would be funny in a Monty Python kind of way if it weren't so serious. And this is why, when there's so many unknowns, why it's so important that we continue to err on the side of caution.
So
that we can continue to overshare information with the American people. We be upfront and honest with them about what we know, and just as important, about what we don't know. And that while we are prepared for the worst in the United States, we are working overtime to prevent the worst.
We, there was a test 2 years ago here in the United States for a coronavirus outbreak, not this one, but for an outbreak like this. We were number one in the world on response. We were the most prepared. I believe we are prepared, but we haven't. If this goes through, we haven't seen anything like this in over 100 years. And, there's going to be things we're not prepared for. I'm really concerned about the economic impact. Do you believe our government is moving and doing all of the things that we can do? Is the administration doing all the things?
I know that the president, who plans to speak to the nation later today about the coronavirus, is deeply engaged, and he's driving a lot of the response. I think that we are doing everything we can at this point. The only thing I would like to see happen faster is to get testing kits out of the headquarters of the Centers for Disease Control in Atlanta and get them to all 50 states. So out on the front lines, you can have prompt tests in a matter of hours like we do with the flu, as opposed to tests that take a matter of days when they go to and from Atlanta.
And are there only 4 states now that have those testing kits?
Unfortunately, that's the case. I think both the CDC and the Food and Drug Administration should aggressively use their emergency authorities under established law to encourage laboratories around the country to develop kits, get those verified, and get them used, in addition to producing more of the established kits we have at CDC headquarters.
You would think that there would be a big market. Somebody, a capitalist, would look at that and go, that's a growth market.
And these laboratories, whether they're at academic institutions or big hospitals, they develop their own tests frequently for all kinds of maladies, so there's no reason they can't do so now. But with the proper standards and protocols, it will accelerate the dissemination of test kits all around the country. Because even if we do have an outbreak, Glenn, let's say that we get five people in Columbus, Ohio, come down with coronavirus.
Mm-hmm.
If we know it early and we can isolate those 5 people, it's much better than if there are 50 or 500 people.
Yeah.
So it's not just a matter of trying to prevent every single possible outbreak, but also containing it as quickly as possible. The economic impact, unfortunately, is going to
out of our hands.
Take to a degree, as we saw in the markets this week, where our economy is already dependent in many cases on supply chains from China. I think this is going to open a lot of eyes to a point I've long made, which is that we should not be dependent on China in that regard.
Thank you.
But one way to mitigate the economic impact here in the United States is to prevent large-scale outbreaks.
Yeah, we've always been blessed by our oceans. Air travel has changed this somewhat, but we've always been blessed by these oceans that surround us, and we're pretty isolated, compared to everybody else. And it has protected us. And if we can stay healthy, and keep our doors open and get the resources that we need, we will be able to nurse the rest of the world back to health. But if we collapse, this is not good. It's really not good.
We should be leading the world in both diagnostic testing, therapeutic drugs, and vaccine research. And I'm confident that the best minds we have, both in and out of the government and private research organizations, can develop a vaccine, develop therapeutic drugs much faster than some of the Debbie Downers predict.
Do you believe this is virus X that we've been looking for 10 years?
I hope not, Glenn. I hope not. I hope this is a virus that we can bring under control and that we can develop quick testing for, we can develop vaccines for, we can identify the kind of people who are most vulnerable to it. Right now it looks like the elderly and the medically infirm are the most vulnerable for severe cases, and bring it under control as quickly as possible.
And not kids, right? It's not hitting kids the same way it hits old people.
That's still an unknown,
okay.
But among the reported confirmed cases, it appears to impact the elderly more severely than the young and the healthy. But again, that's why we have to be prepared for the worst, even as we try to prevent the worst.
Thank you so much, Tom. I appreciate it. Senator Tom Cotton, who has been on this from the beginning. I appreciate your candor and all of the efforts that you're making. Let us know how we can assist you.